love talking to you.
Oh, I love talking to you.
Because you know what you're talking about. I feel like I'm really zoche. I feel like I'm getting an education. It's the best. Um, there's what I wanted to tell you. There's an expression in the yeshiva world called narishkeit. Narishkeit is a person who claims to be knowledgeable and they just spout stupidity. And I'm finding that it exists in the Christian world as well.
Of course.
All these people who are like, oh, there will never be a third temple, and the Jews are doing the Antichrist for trying to bring it. And those are the uneducated people.
Totally.
But the educated Christians are on board and they're cool with it. And at least you can talk to them. So anyway, let's do an interview. Or
Okay.
people would love to hear us talk, I'm sure.
All right. Well, I want to begin opening this up with you holding the book up. Everybody, I just want all of you to know that I have the chance of a lifetime to talk to Rabbi Eliyahu Berkowitz about his latest book, The Return of the Red Heifers. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Pastor Biltz. It's always amazing to talk to you. Always amazing.
Well, I want you to tell people first how to get the book.
Okay. Hopefully I think I sent you the link. You can either go to the Israel365store.com and it's on there, or you can search on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. If you look for Return of the Red Heifers and you look for me as the author, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, it's on Amazon. If you look on Amazon, you'll also see my other books, which are mostly fiction. This is my first attempt at nonfiction.
So you got to tell me this. How long has it been out now? How many weeks?
I think 2.5, maybe.
What has been the most surprising response, or has it been what you've expected? I see WorldNet Daily's written a big article about it, helping you.
Right.
That
They
was
were very
awesome.
kind. JNS is also going to come out with an article. They've been banging around. It should be any day now. I think, it's funny from a religious side, people don't understand this. On one hand, won't change anything, but on another hand, will be transformative and change the entire world. And another thing is politically, Hamas said they attacked us because of the red heifers. Hezbollah also said they attacked us because of the red heifers. And the thing is, all these people who claim to understand Israel and the Middle East, it's all about, I don't even want to say religion. It's all about Torah against straight up evil. And if you don't understand the Torah, you're not going to understand what's going on here. And also another thing I wrote about the book was this is Bible study. It's straight up Bible study. I included all the details. I also included, I call it Red Heifer Past, Present, and Future. A lot of how the red heifer was manifested in the tabernacle and temple. All the laws, which are many and incredibly difficult to understand, and also what's happening right now, which is, I mean, they're planning on doing another dry run, but this one like including Kohanim, um, including like making it more close to the real thing. But they did a dry run just to work out the details, and it was pretty impressive. And also in the future, a lot of people are like, "Oh, so these aren't kosher, so that's the end of the story." And I'm like, "Not nearly." You know, this was just the beginning of the story. And what I'd love to hear from you as a Christian, because this was done by Christians. It was Christians and Jews together. So there are Christians who, through their devotion as Christians, they're involved in this. And it's not a simple thing. It's a huge project. So I think it's inaccurate for Christians who, and I've gotten a lot of this response, oh, it's horrible, it's not connected to Christianity, it's and I'm like, it's not, it's really not. And that's what I want to hear from you. What is the future of Christianity with the red heifers and the third temple?
Well, one thing that I want to mention is that I believe I wish there had been a temple 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. It's all about bringing God into this world. I don't know why anyone would ever object to the temple. I mean, well, when you read Jeremiah 7, God is upset. And of course, he ends up saying, look what happened to Moses' tabernacle. If you don't behave, I'll tear this house down, you know. And he tore it down, but he wanted it rebuilt. And that's why you had Ezra and Nehemiah rebuilding it. And then, of course, Herod expanded it. And then, of course, it was destroyed again. But this time, not only did he kick the Jewish people out, he burnt the house down. But the important thing is, he wants a relationship with us. He wants it rebuilt, but he wants it with a pure heart. That's the whole thing. Just like we struggle politically in Israel, there's a big political divide right now with Netanyahu. There's a big political divide here with Trump on our side. Well, God wants people who want his house built. Can you imagine? It's crazy for Christians not to want to invite God into this world. Why would they not want a temple? That's my personal opinion.
You said the most important word about this whole thing, which is relationship. It's all about having a relationship with Hashem. And the Jews are not, we're supposed to be the Kohanim. We're supposed to be the priests, which the priest doesn't, he's not more important. He serves a function.
Exactly.
And until we serve that function, we're not doing what we're supposed to do. I think one of the reasons for anti-Semitism is because when we were in exile, we weren't doing what we were supposed to do. We weren't being a light unto the nation. We weren't, being a nation of priests. And the red heifer is for only Jews. Christians do not become ritually impure. Anyone from the nations does not become ritually impure. So it will purify us to serve as priests for you, to connect you to the God of Israel. And I mean,
my whole goal is to help you fulfill your mission. My goal is not for me. My goal is to help you, Israel, do their job and become a light to the nations. That's what I believe my job is.
I hope you don't get too much flack for this video, because it seems like every time a Christian stands up and says, oh, the temple is a good thing, then a bunch of people jump all over him and say, oh, he's not really a Christian. But
well, let me bring this point up, because most Christians are totally clueless when it comes to the sacrifices anyway.
Right.
There were no sacrifices for intentional sin. There were sacrifices for sins of ignorance, your asham offering, kata offering, but basically they were free will, voluntary offering. Oh. And so so the Olah offering, the Thanksgiving offering, the peace offerings. So Christians think that the Jews had to sacrifice for sin. No, there was no sacrifice for intentional sin. Therefore, Yeshua, when it comes to that, that's not what happened.
That is a point I've never heard before. So it's not coming to replace Yeshua for Christians.
Exactly. That's my point. Christians don't understand. It has nothing to do, because think about this. If there was a sacrifice for intentional sin, I could have said, great, if I kill Bob, I got to kill 7 bulls and 2 rams. Shoot, it's worth it. Let's do it. Let's go kill Bob. God's happy I killed an animal. I'm happy I killed Bob, and I'm good with Bob. There never was a sacrifice for intentional sins.
But excuse me, I know so little about Christian theology. It's embarrassing. But Christians believe that Yeshua came to cleanse them of sins.
Well, part of the problem is, with most Christians, they don't want to be saved from their sins. They love it too much. They just want to be saved from the consequence of their sin. God, save me from the consequence of my sin. Okay? There's a whole concept out there where so many people say they're saved, and I ask them, what are you saved from? And they go, hell. And I said, well, Yeshua came to save you from your sins, so you don't have to worry about hell. Too many people are just worried about getting saved from the consequence of their sins, because it's not about a relationship.
Wow. Also, another another thing I'd love for you to clarify for Chris, and pardon me for using you for this, but you explain it so much better than I do because I can explain it as a Jew from the basis of what I've learned as a Jew. But Christians have serious issues with this, and I wish I could relate to it, but you're much better. So someone asked me, and I was kind of shocked. What's the difference between impurity and sin? Because they kind of equated impurity and
Well, no,
sin.
that can't be, because
Right.
walking across, attending to the dead is a commandment, but that makes you unclean. That's not a sin, for heaven's sake. Even Yeshua became unclean his entire life. He kept healing the dead people. He kept healing lepers. He was unclean. He had to have the ashes of the red heifer put on him constantly, or he never could enter the temple.
Oh my gosh. You know how much criticism and now people have slammed me for saying exactly what you, and I mean, I respect your knowledge of the sources. If people don't understand, of course you're a huge scholar in Christian theology and Christian sources, and you're also a huge scholar in Jewish sources, and you put me to shame quite frequently, and I learn a lot from you. But I've had people say to me, "What do you mean? Of course Yeshua didn't bring the red heifer, didn't use the red heifer." And I was like, so could you say that one more time? Did Yeshua use? I've gotten slammed for that. I really have.
No, Yeshua became unclean constantly. Every time he raised the dead, every time he healed the leper. And he even told the people to go to the priest and do the
Right.
offerings for that. And then there's no way he would have been allowed in the temple after he did that if he hadn't had the ashes of the red heifer placed on him. He had to fulfill everything. A lot of the problem is Christians don't understand the Bible, the Brit Hadashah, from a Jewish perspective. They understand it from a Greek perspective. And I can actually show you intentional errors in English. Just like the media is biased, the translators were biased. I can show you intentional mistranslations into the King James Bible. Intentional.
I am so glad you're saying this because I've read things and I'm like, gee, that doesn't make sense. And also, I find that my base in Talmud and the oral tradition, and also the oral traditions about the commentaries on the Bible, on the Tanakh and the Torah, I kind of feel like I'm reading the New Testament differently than Christians, because
You are. Totally you are, because
yeah.
just in the book of Revelation alone, there's about 500 references to the Tanakh. So how in the world can a Christian understand the book of Revelation if they've thrown out Tanakh or they don't see the connection? The entire Brit Hadashah is actually Jewish commentary by Jewish people on what they see out of the Tanakh.
Are you considered controversial in the Christian world? Because you are smashing so many of the criticisms that I've gotten.
Sacred cows.
Sacred cows, exactly. Wow. I mean, I have been slammed. Oh, there's no way Jesus would have used the red heifer. And I'm thinking the New Testament opens with him bringing the Passover offering.
His whole purpose was to become unclean for us, just like the priest becomes unclean when he makes someone clean.
Wow.
It's the concept for Yeshua to cleanse us, he had to become unclean.
Wow. Right. So he became unclean, went to the red heifer, then went to the temple.
Exactly.
And it always struck me when he healed the lepers, a lot of people are saying, look, he healed the lepers. And I'm like, yeah. And then he said, go to the Cohen, meaning he was healing.
He had to go to the ashes of the red heifer.
Wow. Wow. So, okay. So now we're jumping right into end of days and that kind of stuff. That the red heifers really going to be something for us to act as Kohanim, as priests for the entire world.
Well, not only that, if you go to the book of Ezekiel, you will find during that 1,000-year reign, they're doing sacrifices. In the book of
Sure.
Ezekiel, there's a rebuilt temple, okay, and they're doing sacrifices. They're even doing Passover. And so God did not end the sacrificial system, the Romans did.
Mm. I love when you said, "Oh yeah, we should have started 1,000 years ago." I'm like, or at least in 1967.
Well, I just wish you had never got kicked out. But just as Rabbi Akiva said, the fact that it's destroyed, we can rely on the promise that it's going to be rebuilt.
Thank God. Oh yeah, thank God. Wow. Okay, this is really refreshing. I'm like, you are just wiping away all the criticisms I've gotten, and it was difficult for me, to be honest, because the red heifers were brought to Israel. They were found by Christian ranchers in Texas. They were brought to Israel by a Christian organization. Um, a lot of the energy that went behind it was from Byron Stinson, who is a devout Christian. Um,
I've met him. I know him.
He's awesome. He's awesome. I think Israel owes him a huge debt of gratitude. I can't emphasize that enough. And I don't, and like I said, I don't pretend to, understand or say, okay, this is for Christianity because I'm a Jew. I'm doing this as a Jew. Um, God told us to bring the red heifer, so we do it. If we
Right.
can. And if we
Well,
can't, we can't.
now I have a big controversial question for you, and you can handle it. You're tough.
Okay.
There's a big debate in Israel too about who's supposed to build the temple according to Zechariah. It says, is the Messiah supposed to build it?
Right.
Or are
Right.
we supposed to build it? And I can comment further, but I want to hear more about your thoughts.
I don't know the exact verse, but there's a verse that says that the Messiah, or from the Melech, from the Malchut David, goes into the temple. Mashma, meaning that at the very least we begin building the temple. So there is a dispute among the sources. I tend to, because of that source that says but at the same time, that's one of the things that the Melech, that the king from Malchut David, from the dynasty of David, he's supposed to build the temple, fight the wars. So it's not really clear. That's very typical for Jewish things,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
I think
because
I think we're I think we're at least supposed to start it. But 2 points. The red heifer has nothing to do with the temple. The
that's
red
that's
heifer,
the other place I wanted to go. But I'll
right.
go ahead.
The red heifer is in the Torah, it talks about the red heifer being prepared outside of the camp. And in the days of the temple, it was brought on a specific spot on the Mount of Olives
Exactly.
that is at the same elevation, and you can
Yes.
see into the Holy of Holies if the doors
Yes.
are open. So that's also for all the people who say, "Oh, you're trying to start a war," which is one of the criticisms we've gotten from the mainstream media is, uh, yes, Hamas said they attacked, and that's proof that the Orthodox Jewish crazies are inciting Arab violence, where
Yeah,
there's so
well,
many wrong.
but maybe I'm crazy, but in Exodus 17, God says he's going to have a war with Amalek in every generation. So who cares? Let's have the war. Let's get this over with.
Yeah, and the Hamas is very clearly Amalek. If they're not from the seed of Amalek, they are
Well,
acting precisely like
when you
Amalek.
look at what they did, the word
Yeah,
Amalek in Hebrew is a nation who chops off heads. Amalek.
yeah,
And so that's who they are. They're operating
yeah,
in that spirit of Amalek. And I believe I'm all for Israel to finishing the flipping job. For heaven's
yeah.
sake, bomb the nuclear reactors in Iran, get rid of their oil pipelines, their finances, invade Gaza, and get rid of them, Hamas.
I kind of
You guys need sovereignty over Judea, Samaria, everything.
I dis God bless you. God bless you 1,000 times over. Um, I I I kind of want to clarify what you said about Iran. The Islamist regime, the people in Iran, there's a huge Christian
I know
revival
there
going on.
is.
And
I'm
it's
all for the
really
people.
Yeah. The people are awesome. There's going to be a Christian revival. Iran is going to become a Christian nation that loves Israel. And just like Cyrus built the second temple, the Iranians are longing to help us build the third temple. And I spoke to a Christian artist who makes murals in Israel to support the Iranian upcoming revolution. He calls it the Esther Revolution, the only
Well, that's
revolution in history led by women.
I
So,
love it. Because if you
yeah,
remember, it was in Susha, which is where Daniel was, Esther was, and that is known as Elam in the Bible. And I don't know if you've seen this verse, but God said he will literally put his throne in Elam.
right, right. They're going to, it's people are like, it's not Iran evil, it's Iran needs to be fixed,
Yeah.
and if it's fixed, it's going to be a huge light in the world. That's what we're looking at. And I mean, Iran, it's Persia. They have what is it, a 3,000-year-old culture?
Yeah.
Um, and and they're it's like people are like, oh, it's going to be another war where you take an evil regime. And no, 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 no. These are before the Iranian Revolution, which I remember. Okay, I was 17 years old. Iran was more European than Europe.
Oh,
All the
exactly.
so when they're not going to, like, if they lose their government, they're not even going to miss a beat. And they hate Palestinians. Oh my gosh, they hate
Yeah. Well,
Palestinians.
they're not Arabs, really. They're Persians. But
They're not Arabs, and they're not really traditionally Muslims.
now, as you said, you don't need a temple for the red heifer ceremony.
Correct. We don't need,
Now,
and we should have started the temple service, and we don't need a temple in order to start the temple service. We
exactly.
just
That's proof of that in Ezra and Nehemiah's day. They were doing sacrifices before the
exactly,
foundation was even laid.
exactly, and and an altar. It just has to be in that one spot where the altar was, and it's a pile of uncut stones. So I can get like a basketball team and
Yeah.
give each of the young guys a big rock and say, okay, start running up to the Temple Mount.
Well,
And we can do an altar and do our sacrifices, take the stones away, hose it down, and
move on.
we've done it.
Well, here's a very important question I've got for you here.
Okay, you scare me. You're a smart guy. You scare me.
In your book, you had said that Rabbi Judah Hanasi records the ninth red heifer prepared by the high priest Ishmael ben
60,
Yabi around
60
10
CE.
years before the temple was destroyed,
Right.
was used to maintain ritual purity for another 300 years after the temple was destroyed. Okay, so the
Right.
question is,
Okay.
why would they need temple purity for 300 years, and why would they if there was no temple? And then I have a
I was
follow-up.
I was kind of hoping that would slide by. But I
Not me.
nothing
It's
slips
not
by.
gonna slide by me.
I was wondering about that. I think it's because the Jewish people had it so ingrained in them to to guard their purity. And there were Kohanim. They knew who the Kohanim, the priests, were. So even without the temple, if they like went into a cemetery or came close to a dead body, they would want to purify themselves. I think in general, purity back in the day, they could almost see it. They lived in a different reality where they could sense purity in a way that we just can't, and they understood it in a way that we can't.
Well,
So
yeah,
I think the tradition of I'm impure and I need to be purified, even if I'm not bringing the Passover offering. Or the Passover offering actually even continued for a bit after the destruction of the temple. So I think it was more out of, I don't want to say habit, but just out of a strong personal inclination to relate to their state of purity, that they continued to do the red heifer.
with that in mind, I think, and of course, Christians are clueless on this for the most part. I would love to see the ashes of the red heifer ceremony, even if there wasn't a temple for another 1,000 years, which I don't think is true, because I can't help but think of Ezekiel's vision in Ezekiel 36:25 and verse 26, where God says, then I will cleanse them. This is referring, and then I will put a new heart in them, a new spirit in them. And it's so I would think if Israel wanted to become pure, even though they may become ritually impure a week later because they're by another dead person, why wouldn't all of Israel want to be holy and be in that pure state and want the red heifer, even if there was no temple, just to go
Kedoshim to you. Yeah.
of the relationship they would have with God?
I think that's a powerful statement, and I think you're right. I mean, we do similar things. Oh gosh.
But that would
I
be huge. Can you imagine how many Jews do you think would line up if it was ready, whether there was a temple or not, just because of their relationship they wanted with God?
Right, right. I think also, I think it has a lot to do with us going out to exile. When we went out to exile, I don't want to say we got lazy, but there were things we kind of like, we don't have to do the tchelet blue thread
Right.
in our tzitzit. They're just different things got to be a little lax. Um, and especially when it comes to the temple. We and this is we are required to bring the public time-bound offerings, even if we're impure.
Exactly.
So as I'm sitting here today, we are required to bring the twice daily offering. We're required to bring the Passover offering. There's and some of the holiday offerings, but when we came back, coming back to Israel, doing God's will and canceling out your will is really difficult.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the reasons why very few Orthodox Jews are on board.
Well, that brings me to the point of the fact that I believe I read an article written by the guy that's in charge of all of this, saying that the big red heifer excitement is all around the world, but not in Israel.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's where Psalm 126 comes in handy. Yeah, the Orthodox, and I think the reason is that Orthodox Jews, they're very complacent and they're okay with just having Shabbat, kosher.
That would require more of them.
It would require so much more. And there's anything having to do, and that's why we have a chief rabbinate and not a Sanhedrin. Because they just, I mean,
that's good because I keep hearing people try to say there's a Sanhedrin in Israel, but it's
okay. I'm guilty, and I'll explain. When I first started writing for Israel 365, there was actually it started I think about 10, 15 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, a group of rabbis led at the time by Rav Adin Steinsaltz of blessed memory, who huge influence in the generation, tried to restart the Sanhedrin. And the first thing they had to do was restart what's called smicha, which is, I don't know, how do you say smicha? Where they put the hands on and transfer to the next. Right. Anyway, so they managed to figure out a way to do that, which was really great. So they started acting like a Sanhedrin, which is not like rabbis. And I was very supportive of them. A lot of the reason is also because it's forbidden for Jews to use a non-Torah court of law. So it was technically forbidden for us to use any court of law in Israel. And I'm like, okay, so I want to have a Sanhedrin so that I don't have to, if I ever have to go to court, that I'm not going to do a sin. I was very supportive of them. The group of rabbis who started that, Rav Steinsaltz left, Rav Yoel Schwartz passed away, another Rav passed away, so it kind of fell apart. But they're working to reestablish a new group, and they get zero recognition from the Orthodox rabbis, from the Orthodox community, from the government.
I hear all these Christians talking about what they're deciding, and it's like no one recognizes them.
They condemned the United Nations for a lot of reasons, and the United Nations actually responded. And a lot of Christians were into it. And I was getting phone calls from Jews like, who do these rabbis think they are? And I'm like, rabbis? You know? So, so in many ways, and we see here with the red heifer, though I know Christians, some Christians object to it, a lot of Christians are hugely supportive. My boss, Rabbi Tuli Weiss, he was flying back once from America, and he was sitting next to a Haredi Jew in black clothes and a big black hat. And the stewardess came over, and she had a big golden cross. And she looked down at the Haredi guy and she said, "Oh, you're an Orthodox Jew." And he laughed because he was obviously an Orthodox Jew. And he said, "Yeah." So she said, "Oh, so you must know all about the red heifers that landed in Israel." And he said, "What are you talking about?" And Rabbi Tuli, he just started laughing because the Christians, they are excited about it. For them, the messianic era, the whatever you want to call it, the final redemption, for them, it's like, oh yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's load up the car and start driving. Jews, in some way, they're not up for the change. We've come back to Israel, but we haven't really come back to Israel. So that's why I rely very heavily on Psalm 126, which the Gemara has beautiful. In Masechet Brachot, there's a beautiful, beautiful. Then it will be said amongst the nations how great it is what God did for you. And I want my Christian readers, Christians who are into this, I want you to totally embarrass any Jew who is not on board. You got to walk out. Oh, it's amazing that you guys have the red heifer. I don't know what you're talking about. Do it. Embarrass them.
What blew me away, I guess, is how quickly Moshe Dayan gave the Temple Mount back to the Arabs. Does Israel even want a temple?
Israel. What do you mean is well?
Okay. The nation, political environment. Is it like the ACLU here? There's no way they want them in charge.
When Moshe Dayan did it, he wasn't making a decision as a representative of the Jewish people or the Israeli government. He was making a statement that Israel would not be a Jewish country, a Jewish nation. And
That's horrible.
It was horrible. The way you can tell is the number of Jews that go up to the Temple Mount, which it used to be like 5,000 a year. It was empty. And we were telling the Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims, we were telling them, "Oh yeah, we don't care, take it." I know it's my living room, but you can take over and put your feet up on the coffee table. But if you look over the last 10 years, it's hockey stick. I think it was 50,000 Jews went up last year. And this is another big request, a big ask I have of the Christians. When the Muslims say they don't want Jews praying up there, that's not what they're saying. They're saying only Muslims can pray up there.
Of course. They don't want Christians either. They don't want anybody.
Exactly.
But guess what? My tour group, we were up there on the Temple Mount and we said the Shema. It was great.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I gotta warn you. I've seen it with Ayuvel. They hate Jews, but as soon as Christians get on board, they hate you more. They hate you more.
Oh, sure.
They have these horrible gray sweatshirts and sweat skirts and sweatpants that they make Christians wear to embarrass them, to demean them. They have big yellow stripes on the side. It's specifically to demean Christians. And you can't go up with the New Testament or with a prayer book or with hymns, Psalms, or with I don't know.
I can't. Maybe across. I can't. I have it all in my heart and my head.
Yeah, well, they started by having Torah lessons up there. A rabbi would go up and he would memorize everything. And they started, and I think that opened up. And now there are actually prayers several times a day. We can't go up at night, so we can't do the evening prayers. But we have the morning prayers. We can't wear tefillin. We can't wear tzitzit. We can't read from the Torah. But we're praying up there, and I think that's going to slowly open the door. But the main thing is that we have to go up, and I'd like to see Christians go up and pray. If you do that, you're gonna scare the Waqif. You're gonna scare the Muslims like crazy. They're gonna go running around. But that's what we want. We want a house of prayer for all nations. We don't want only the Jews. They want only the Muslims, and not only the Muslims. Arabs, Muslims who go up there from the United Arab Emirates, from even from Saudi Arabia, I've been told, from any of the nations that have signed the Abraham Accords with Israel, the Palestinians chase them away. They won't let them pray in the mosques. And when they go to Hebron, they have to pray on the Jewish side, which we let them do.
Oh, I'm going to Hebron in a couple of weeks. I have a tour coming to Israel in a few weeks, and we're going to Hebron.
God bless you. People don't understand how important that is. Hebron
I always try to go there. Always.
Yeah,
we're
it's
going
where it all
to
started.
Shiloh, and we're going to look at those red heifers. And I'd love to have you drop by. I sent you my itinerary, I believe.
I can't go to Shiloh. If I'll definitely come down to meet you in Jerusalem if I can.
We'll be in the Galilee area.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Look, if you don't have my itinerary, I'll resend it. But we're going to be in the Galilee area. I'd love to have you maybe come and speak to our group about your book.
I'd love to speak to them anyway. I get a lot of strength from these people who come to. I mean, come on, you're coming during a war. You know, I mean, God bless y'all.
Yeah, and we're flying on El Al, so there's no way it's going to be stopped.
God bless you. God bless you. And you know, for Christians who come over, I want to also add what's very important that they go with you is you don't take them on a Christian tour.
Exactly.
Right. Because Christians who come and see everything and do the checklist, they're not going to see the redemption happening.
They're not going to see Shiloh. They're not going to see Hebron. Right. They're not going to see half the places I go to.
They're going to see Via Dolorosa. They're going to see Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But they're not. I mean, how can you come to Israel and not go to Hebron? You know,
exactly. I love that place.
Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov,
Sarah, Rivka, Ruth, and Jesse.
It's where it all started. It's the basis. It's yeah.
Hey, I got one more. I got another question real quick.
Okay.
You say the Ark of the Covenant's never been lost. Well, I would think you mentioned how the Talmud hints at locations where the ashes might have been concealed. Well, why don't you just go pick up some of those?
What, some ashes?
Of the red heifer that you say the Talmud lists. There's places where the ashes have been held. Why mess with this cow? Go start digging.
You're right. When they did the red heifer,
why isn't someone just looking for the ashes?
Well, I know why they're not going for the Ark of the Covenant. And this is
another. They already know where that is. Why aren't Jewish people in charge of the Temple Mount looking at the Talmud and looking for the ashes?
That's a really good point. I'm going to talk to Rav Azari about that. Because first of all, your point is very good, because one of the major difficulties they had is every time, except for the very first red heifer, every time they did the red heifer, they had the ashes from the previous heifer.
Exactly.
And it made things much more simple. So what you're saying is when they did the red heifer, they put ashes in different spots, and one of them was in the Arona Breed, in the Ark of the Covenant. So
if you know where the Ark of the Covenant is, open it up and look.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you say that they're meant very locations.
Wow. So do you know Jim Barfield?
I've heard the name.
Okay, he runs the Copper Scroll Project.
Yeah, right. That's why I know it.
Right. The Copper Scroll was one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it was inscribed in copper. It actually sits now in a museum in Jordan, and it's basically a treasure map of where they hid all the gold and silver in the time of Jeremiah. And he deciphered it, and he actually he says it's all in Qumran. And he went around with a metal detector, and he verified he knows where it is, but he can't lift a shovel full of dirt. About before the war, there was the Bible Museum in Washington got caught by the government. A lot of the exhibits that were brought over, archaeological artifacts, didn't have good provenance. They were kind of stolen. So they had to give a lot of it back.
Did you tell the Vatican that?
But at least one artifact, I believe it was an incense shovel that was found outside of Hebron, was given to the Palestinian Authority because they're the original owners. So if Jim Barfield can, and the reason why the government doesn't want to let him dig is if he finds gold and silver, the whole world is going to say, hey, you're stealing from the Palestinians. It belongs to them. Now, as absurd as this is going to sound, if we find the Ark of the Covenant, the United Nations, the European Union, all of the
Claim it's the Palestinians.
yes, they're going to say it belongs to the Palestinians.
But you said you already know where it is.
Yes, it is underneath the Dome of the Rock.
Right, that's what I figured. But I guess the thing is, you can't proclaim that. How could it belong to the Palestinians, but it was like a couple thousand years before there were any Palestinians?
You'll have to tell me exactly what date you think the Palestinians actually existed.
Yeah, the word, doesn't the word Palestinian come from Philistine, which means invaders?
Yes. Yes.
They were the invaders.
And it was Syria Palestina that was a name given to try to disconnect us from and they can't even pronounce it because they can't pronounce the P. So they say Palestinae. No, I mean it's fake. And everyone's like, and well, as a media person, language is very important to me, especially when it comes to the narrative.
Oh man, I'd love to detail the language.
Oh gosh, I would love to write I would love to write a book saying, okay, anyone who uses the term West Bank, don't listen to him. Anyone who says Temple Mount, where Al-Aqsa is, the Golden Dome, Al-Aqsa, the third holiest site in all of Islam, that from the beginning to end is a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, you should listen to Dr. Mordechai Kedar. He explains how the Umayyads made it up because they couldn't go to Hajj to Mecca, and that's one of the lies. And so, if we find the Ark of the Covenant, which is explicitly described in the Bible, that every Christian can read and every Jew knows, and Christians know as well, and also, if we find the Ark of the Covenant, they'll say, "Oh, that is Palestinian."
Yeah, but can't you tell them to shove it up their nose? Tell them to come and get it over the IDF. I mean, it's in your hands.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. From your mouth to God's ears.
I want to see some chutzpah. I want to see some chutzpah from you guys.
We call it chutzpah shel kedusha, holy chutzpah. You are 1,000% right. And I mean, I compare it to the spies who didn't want to come out of the desert. The spies, we have the tradition that they were Bible scholars. And they said, look, if we go into Israel, we'll actually have to farm and work and fight. And we don't want to do that. We just want to stay out, eat the manna and study Bible all day and be very holy. And God said, you're going to die. Okay. And that's kind of like where we're holding right now. And even the Zionists, they said, we got to take the land, but then they kind of like lost the thread, and went astray. But I compare this like from 1967 till now is, coming to the border of the land and saying, no, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where we're holding. And we needed a new generation, the generation of my kids, the generation of the younger ones and I see that happening now. The young generation that went out to war, it's a totally new generation. Even they can't keep the tzitzit. They have a special mesh camouflage four-cornered garment for the IDF that you wear under your fatigues. They can't keep it on the shelves. Even the non-religious soldiers are wearing it. They're like, I want bulletproof vest.
I don't mean to put you on the spot here. And if I'm putting you on the spot, just say you're not going to answer that. But what do you think of these ultra-Orthodox that refuse to fight?
I'm glad you asked that question. Okay, first of all, I did do the IDF. I made Aliyah when I was 30 years old. And I think like 8 months later, I was in the Army, and I really wanted it. And I was a combat medic. But I only served 4 months. I did basic training. I did my medic training. And then but the thing is, as a medic, they grab you every chance they get for reserve duty. I was doing reserve duty 3 times a year. But okay, I'm sure you know the Rambam says that there are three kinds of wars, which are actually two. There's Milchemet Mitzvah, commanded war, and there's Milchemet Reshut, which is a voluntary war. So Milchemet Reshut, when the Torah says, there's certain exemptions for going out to war, it's only for the voluntary war, which is done to make money. And the soldiers take part in the loot and part in the money, but that's a voluntary war. You need the ornament. There are certain laws having to do with that. But there's a Milchemet Mitzvah, which in the language of the Rambam, afilu kala mechupata, even a bride goes out from under her canopy to fight in this war. Meaning it's 120% of the Jews go out to war. And that is the third kind of war is a war against Amalek, which is a specific kind of Milchemet Mitzvah, a commanded war.
Well, do you think that is the case now?
I think you can't argue.
I know.
A Milchemet Mitzvah, even if you don't want to go to Milchemet Amalek, because you could say, oh, they're not really Amalek. They're not. Milchemet Mitzvah is an existential fight in the land of Israel. And that's the kind of war that every single person should go through. If I cornered, and please, all the Christians, ask the Orthodox Jews this question, that even a bride goes out from under her canopy to fight an existential war in the land of Israel. And that's what we're fighting. So not only should they go out to war, they must go out to war, and they must be the first ones. I remember one year I was doing the army, and a non-religious guy was like new in our unit. And after, he was always looking at me weird. And then he walks up and he's like, why are you doing the army? And I'm like, yeah, I got the letter in the mail. And he's like, oh, but you're an Orthodox Jew. And I said, first of all, thank you for giving me the benefit of the doubt. Some days I'm not so sure. And second of all, this is what we call Mesiut Nefesh, which is endangering your soul, endangering yourself for the sake of Israel, in this case. And I said, and you don't even believe you have a soul, so why are you here? I think the very first people who go out to war should be the ultra-Orthodox. They should be the first ones. They should be, and I don't see any other way to read the law. I just want to, can you please define for me what a Milchemet Mitzvah is and why you think it does not apply to this war?
Yeah.
I think they should be the first ones out and not come home until it's done. They should be telling people, no, you stay here. I'm going. You stay home. I'm going. And I don't know how these people we were talking before about Narishkeit. Narishkeit is pretending you're religious when you don't know anything. They look, this is Narishkeit. They look Orthodox, but they're not acting Orthodox.
Yeah.
An Orthodox Jew would be the first one in line. And there are like the religious Zionists. They're Orthodox. They're Torah observant. They're going out. There are some Haredim who are going out. There's even a side to say that there's more Haredim than Tel Aviv secular Jews, okay, who are getting out of the army quite a bit. And there's a lot of anti-Israel sentiment in Tel Aviv these days. And also a lot of very strong pushback to that. A lot of Tel Aviv people, they tend to be the old school ones who are like...
One thing you had made this comment I just picked up on, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but I asked you, do you have a soul? And what would you say?
Me?
Yes. But
sometimes I wish I didn't. It makes things harder.
Well, here's what I tell people. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. And your soul is going to be around forever. But you may get a new body. And so people need to realize that.
Yeah, I used to struggle and try hard to be, an Eved Hashem, a servant of God. And it was hard for me. And then I had kids. You have kids. And the first time you hold that little baby, you start thinking about it. And then the first time that kid is sitting across from you and says things that just want to make you want to cry, then I mean, there's no doubt. I can't see anyone going through that and saying, "No, maybe there's a God. I believe in God." No, you
Right.
don't believe in
Yeah.
God. You've seen it right in front of your eyes. Stop it.
Well, we're
And
almost running out of time, but I
okay.
sure have enjoyed visiting with you. Back
Oh
to
my
the red
gosh.
heifer, is there anything that you think that the Christians really need to know concerning the red heifer? And I want to highlight everyone, I've read his book. I love his book. You need to get his book. Go ahead.
Is there something that Christians need to know? I mean, I can say it, but you could say it much better, which is it's not a threat. A Christian can support the red heifer, can support that, should support the third temple, and it could only make them a better Christian. This is not a threat to Christianity. It is not a Jewish attempt to deny Jesus. I don't believe in Jesus, but I'm not going to try to make anyone stop believing. So and I think, like you said, the third temple's in prophecy. You want to be on board? This is what it's really about. It's about, are you for the Bible and the things that are written in it? Are you for the prophecy, or are you against the prophecy? Are you trying to stop the prophecies from happening? It's really that simple. And
Well, what's amazing is in the Brit Hadashah, in the book called Hebrews, hello, there is a verse, and what it says is right here in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 4, it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins.
right,
And so they have to realize the Jews never thought it did. This is
right.
unbelievable. They think that, oh, the Jews thought though, but now it's not true. Jews are the ones who wrote this. And they're trying to say, look, the sacrificial system, even the red heifer, has nothing to do with taking away sins. So why are you so upset thinking that's going to replace Yeshua? It has nothing to do with it.
If I can, I want to run something past you since I have you, and I so appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom and your understanding. We're coming up on Passover, and I there's this thing of a lot more and more Christians are doing the Seder, the Passover Seder at home.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. And the only thing that bothered me about it was they would say the Passover offering is a sin offering.
No, it's not. It's a peace offering.
So I told them, look, it is not a sin offering. You're doing something wrong if you think it is.
Yes.
But don't you want to have a peace offering even with Jesus?
That's
Do
what
it
it's
as a
all
Christian.
about. Yeah, no,
Thank
they,
God.
they have the whole thing wrong.
Thank God.
They've got the whole thing wrong.
And I'm like the temple, if you have a grandkid and you want to bring a Thanksgiving offering, bring it.
And it has
This
nothing to do with sin. The Ola offering, nothing to do with sin.
exactly. When you said relationship, I was like, yes, it's about
How
relationship.
do you get what if you want to have a relationship with somebody, you go out in a restaurant and eat. The whole altar was the table where you would sit down with God and build a
Or you go,
relationship.
or you go have dinner at their house.
And if they say that the sacrifices should stop, I'd say, well, when was the last time you had a hamburger? Hello. Well, how do you think you get your hamburger? Okay, why would you not want to have a hamburger with God, for heaven's sake?
Yeah, bring your first fruit and say, look, my tree gave fruit. Thank God. Thank you. Thank God.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I'm
yeah,
so glad you said that. Oh, wow.
absolutely.
Wow. You've really dialed me in. I appreciate it. Wow. Wow.
Well, I just think you're the best, and I just thank you for coming on and doing this interview with me.
I so appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom, and that you managed to bring people forward out of knowledge and wisdom of Bible, of Torah, of New Testament. And that's what we really need. For some reason, and I'm going to get a lot of grief from Orthodox Jews about this. I'm seeing that we're walking this path together, Jews and
Of course.
Christians. Yeah, the third temple is not going to be a synagogue. It's
Right.
and
Exactly.
and it's just working out that we're walking the path together. And I'm like, gee, that's interesting. And I mean, especially if it brings me together with people like you and all the other amazing people I've met through this book and through my job. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really
Yeah, I have two things I wanted to mention real quick. One of them, I don't know if you knew, I just got back from a week in India and a week in Nepal. And when I was
does not surprise me. Like,
But
if we can't be a light unto the nations, you'll be.
I try. But in Nepal, I spoke only to pastors. 200 pastors in Nepal.
God bless you. God bless you.
Each pastor has about 200 people in their congregation. And I blew them away showing how Torah is still applicable, it's important, and making connections. Well, guess what? 200 pastors times 200 people, that's 40,000 people I've impacted. And they want me to come back and do another conference next year.
I'm going to cry. They're getting it from the straight source, and that's really rare these days. There's so many people that have different agendas, but
yeah, I'm just going
so
there to get
you.
people, even in India. Now, this is mind blowing. In India, it went so well. They want me to come back and they want to do a conference in 5 different states where I do a pastor's conference in one state, fly to the next state, do only pastors. Well, you have 5 states, 200 pastors in each state. That's 1,000 people who each have 200 members. That's 200,000 people I'll be able to affect in India next year, getting them to love Israel and love Torah.
Well, and you're the real source. I mean, that's another thing. I talk to Christians. I'm like, well, you should learn. When I started learning New Testament, my problem was I was looking for the Rashi. There's no Rashi. There's no commentaries. I'm just used to like learning from the tradition. And you have those sources. You know the commentaries, Jewish and Christian, and people don't understand. Like the Talmud is mostly commentary on the Bible.
Exactly. Well, this is one thing that you're not aware of, that I comment and blows Christians away. It doesn't affect their theology, but it's
Right.
authentic. You need to be authentic.
Right.
In the Gospels, which I'm assuming you may have read, I don't know, but there is Peter, Cephas, denies the Messiah 3 times and a rooster crows. Okay. Well, I tell people, guess what? According to the Talmud, roosters were never allowed in Jerusalem. Chickens weren't an acceptable sacrifice. It wasn't a flipping rooster, but there was a priest called the Gever who,
Right. I was just
rooster, it was a title like general or captain. Okay, so it's just simple things. They don't understand the New Testament because they're looking at it from a Greek mindset, realizing there wasn't a rooster. It was a priest with the title of rooster.
Gotcha. You're right. You're totally right. When you said rooster, I'm like, yep.
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but I have just got done writing the entire New Testament in Hebrew with the Hebrew transliteration, so English speakers who want to read Hebrew can read it. And then I have the English, and I corrected all the errors. So the New Testament is now in Hebrew with transliteration. But guess what I've done that no one who's ever written a Bible has done? And you guys need to have Art Scroll or JPS do this. Guess what I've done? In a physical book, and I just got done doing Breshit. I just got done redoing Breshit with the Hebrew, the transliteration, and the English with corrections because the English is really screwed up there.
Yeah.
But I put a QR code in the book where the book becomes alive. You put your phone over the book and you see a video of me talking, or you can hear an audio of me explaining the problem with the verse. So you can turn your physical books, any physical book, even little children's book. They read about crossing the Red Sea. They put their phone over the QR code. They can see Moses crossing the Red Sea in a video. I'm making all the books come alive.
Wow. God bless you. I wish I had your energy. I wish I had your
70.
knowledge and wisdom. When I was young like you, I'm 63, but God bless you. I get you. I get that your energy comes from like an inner light, and it's really inspiring.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring.
I'm the Energizer Bunny. My own staff is about half my age, can't keep up with me.
No, but it comes from the sources of holiness. I've seen it in some of the rabbis who have influenced me the most. Not only do they get energy and life energy from the holiness and what they do, but it's also there's this concept in Kabbalah of that when you study Torah, unlike other disciplines, there's your knowledge extends beyond yourself. So one of the reasons why you're so smart is not just because you have great brain cells, but because you're tapped into an external source of holiness. So that I've seen it before. It's amazing. My Rav Daniel Kahn, my Rav Erez Gazit, my Rav Natan Greenberg, they're all, you just sit down and talk with them. You're like, how do you remember all that? And it's also a matter of maintaining purity. If you sit there, looking at horrible things, on your iPhone, then you're not going to be tapped into purity, and all your channels will be gummed up, and you won't be able to remember a single verse, like me.
Oh, you're so funny. Well, thank you so much for being with us, and may the Lord bless you.
Do you keep Leil Seder?
Matter of fact, I've done Seders here with 1,500 people. I'd have monster Seders, community Seders. Yeah, well, like last year, we wanted it smaller, so we had like 500 people at our Seder. This
intimate.
Year, yeah. But we tell people to do it on, the night going into the 15th, their family Seder, but the night before is a community Seder, and we go through it so people can do both. And but yes.
Thank God. Okay, so I can wish you a wonderful Pesach, a glorious Leil Seder, and Chag Sameach. You're the best. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I hope to see you in Israel in a few weeks.
I hope so too. We got to work that out.
Take care. Bye.
Okay.